Hi, this is TrueColours, and in today's lecture, we are going to discuss about the timeline of the history of philosophy. It is lecture number 4, and in my previous 3 lectures, we have already discussed precisely about what is the meaning of philosophy, why should we study philosophy, what is the history of philosophy, and in this particular lecture we will be discussing about the timeline of the history of philosophy. Before discussing the timeline of the history of philosophy, today's question is, why is the timeline of history of philosophy is important? Because the timeline of the history of philosophy allows us to understand how philosophical ideas have developed and evolved over time, revealing the connections between different thinkers and schools of thought, providing context for current philosophical debates, and ultimately helping us to better grasp the nature of human thoughts and inquiry across different historical periods. Then, why is the timeline of the history of philosophy is important? Because in contextual understanding. Here, what is the meaning of contextual understanding regarding the timeline of the history of philosophy? By placing philosophers within their historical context, we can better understand how their ideas were shaped by the social, political, and cultural conditions of their time. Then, continuity and change. What is the meaning of continuity and change regarding timeline of the history of philosophy? A timeline highlights the ongoing debates and discussions that have persisted throughout history, while also showing how philosophical concepts have been refined and challenged over time. Then, why should we study the timeline of the history of philosophy? Because of influence and lineage. What is the meaning of influence and lineage regarding timeline of the history of philosophy? By tracing the lineage of ideas that allows us to see how philosophers have built upon the work of their predecessors, influencing the development of later philosophical schools. Then, critical thinking. Here, what is the meaning of critical thinking regarding timeline of the history of philosophy? By studying the history of philosophy encourages critical thinking by exposing us to a variety of perspectives and allowing us to evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of different philosophical arguments. Then, why should we study the timeline of the history of philosophy? Because of the relevance to contemporary issues. Here, relevance to contemporary issues means we can understand the historical roots of current philosophical debates that can help us better address contemporary problems and challenges. So, let's discuss and learn proactively the chronological overview of the development of philosophical thoughts worldwide. Here, timeline means it is a visual representation of events in chronological order, typically using a bar labeled with dates. Okay, so let's dive in. Here we will be discussing about around 50 important or major timelines that will precisely cover all the contemporary philosophers. Okay, so let's get started. uh, Around 1500 BCE. Here BCE means before Christian era. Okay, so around 1500, the first timeline is 1500 BCE to 1100 BCE. What had been happened in this time? The Rig Veda written. Okay, around 1500 BCE and 1100 BCE, the Rig Veda written mentioning the god Rudra. Okay, mentioning the god Rudra, that is also called Lord Shiva, and goddess Tara, among others, for the first time. So here it is important to understand very clearly that we are discussing that timeline of history of philosophy and not about the Vedas or philosophers, or however we will use the names of philosophers so that we can precisely understand and proactively remember the timeline. Okay, so again reiterating that around 1500 BCE to 1100 BCE, the Rigveda written mentioning the Lord Rudra or God Rudra, that is also called Lord Shiva and Goddess Tara, among others, for the first time. You can see the Lord Shiva at that time. This painting is depicting the Lord Shiva and Goddess Tara, which were written in the Rig Veda. Then the second timeline is around 1500 BCE to 500 BCE. Indian scholars of the so-called Vedic period commit the Vedas to written form. Okay, commit the Vedas to written form. Basic tenets of Hinduism are established. Where basic tenets of Hinduism are established, here the four Vedas, that is also called the heart of Hinduism, that are Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda. Okay. Here you can see again via pictures that will precisely help us to remember the timeline. Then the third timeline is around 610 BCE to 546 BCE, date of Anaximander. Okay, dates of Anaximander. Here, Anaximander, who was Anaximander? Anaximander was first physician, metaphysician, and also first geographer. Okay, Anaximander was first metaphysician and also first geographer. Anaximander developed the cosmic theory of the Apiron. Okay, he developed the cosmic theory of Apiron, which is also called the theory of boundless, as the first cause of existence. The theory of boundless as the first cause of existence. So he is an Anaximander. You can see via picture so that you can easily remember the timeline. Then around 600 BCE, the development of the Charvaka school of philosophy in India. Okay. Then around 600 BCE, the development of Charvaka school of philosophy in India. That is also called Lokayat, or we can pronunciate it Lokayata. Here, what is the meaning of Charvaka? Charvaka, that is also called Lokayat. Those who are Lokayat, those attached to the way of the world, and Charvaka schools of philosophy represents materialism. Okay, it means that only matter exists, and then it represents, or it supports, or it advocates empiricism. Empiricism means all knowledge comes from experience. All knowledge comes from experience. Then skepticism. Okay, skepticism, that means it rejects inference. Here, what is the meaning of inference? Inference means draw a prior conclusion or logical judgment on the basis of circumstantial evidence by using information that you already have about it, rather than on the basis of direct observation. It is also called elation. Okay. And skepticism means doubt or disbelief about the truth of something. That is also called agnosticism. Then, after Charvaka schools of philosophy, around 599 BCE to 527 BCE, the traditional dating of the life of Vardhaman Mahavira. Okay, okay, according to Jain tradition. Here is the you can see on your screen the Vardhaman Mahavira. Then after Vardhaman Mahavira, around 585 BCE, that time, it is the time in which Thales of Miletus lived. Okay, or Miletus lived. It is the time in which Thales of Miletus lived. He is known as the father of philosophy. He is known as the father of philosophy. Why he is known the father of philosophy? Because Aristotle, who was Aristotle? One of the most famous ancient Greek philosophers. Aristotle cites him as the first thinker to propose that the universe is composed of a single kind of matter, and that matter is water. Okay, that is why Aristotle called him as the father of philosophy. He is Thales, okay, and Miletus is a place in Greece or Greek. So, interesting facts about Thales of Miletus. He is the first Greek mathematician and Greek philosopher. He predicted the solar eclipse. He used to think that matters have life. He was the first to research scientific philosophy. He was the first mathematician to use deductive reasoning in geometry. Okay, what is the meaning of deductive reasoning? Deductive reasoning means it involves drawing conclusions logically from other things that are already known. Okay, inference from general principles. Then after Thales, around 570 BCE to 478 BCE, life of Xenophanes. Okay, life of Xenophanes of Colophon. Colophon is a place in Greece or Greek. Here, the Xenophanes claims that claims about one God as the first cause of existence. Xenophanes claims that God is one and God is the first cause of existence. So he said that God is one, greatest of gods and men, not like mortals in body or thought. Then after Xenophanes, around 563 BCE to 483 BCE, the life of Siddhartha Gautama according to modern scholarly consensus. Okay, Siddhartha Gautama, also known as Lord Buddha. Then after Lord Buddha, around 546 BCE, the dates of Anaxims. Okay, the date of Anaxims work, and his work is he claimed that air as the first cause of existence. Here we need to understand then that Xenophanes called that the first cause of existence is God, or the Anaximander called that the first cause of existence is water, but the Anaximenes claimed that the first cause of existence is air. He was a disciple or pupil of Anaximander. Okay, and Anaximenes is the third and the last of Milesian philosophers. He thought that the earth was flat and rode on air, and heavens moved around the earth like a hat on a head. Here you can see that he is Anaximenes or Anaxims. Then after Anaxims, around 500 BCE, the life of Chinese relativist philosopher. Here, what is the meaning of relativist? Relativist always argues that truth is not always the same, but varies according to circumstances. What is the meaning of relativist? Relativist always argues that truth is not always the same but varies according to circumstances. So around 500 BCE, life of Chinese relativist philosopher who Tangxi, okay, Tangxi, and his probable dates of death was around 520 BC to 502 BCE. Here he is Tangxi. Again, I am reiterating that we are discussing about the timeline, and however we also discussing about the philosophers, because via philosophers discussion we can precisely remember the timeline of philosophy or philosophical dates. Okay, then again around 500 BCE, the contemporary of Tangxi, here the probable life of the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu. Okay, and who was Lao Tzu? He was the founder of Taoism and author of the Tao Te Ching. Here, what is the meaning of Taoism? Taoism is a Chinese religious philosophy which teaches that people should lead a simple, honest life and not interfere with the cause of natural events. Again, reiterating, what is the meaning of Taoism? Taoism is a Chinese religious philosophy which teaches that people should lead a simple, honest life and not interfere with the cause of natural events. Here you can see that he is Tao Tzu, and his famous quote is that care about what others people think and you will always be their prisoner. Wow. Then again around 500 BCE, the contemporary philosopher who Sun Tzu, okay, the probable life of Sun Tzu started, and he was the military strategist and author of the Art of War. So you can see in picture that he is Sun Tzu, okay, and his famous quote is, one of the famous quotes is that the greatest victory is that which requires no battle. And he was also the author of the Art of War. Then after 500 BCE, around 492 BCE to 432 BCE, the life of Greek philosopher Empedocles. Okay, the life of Greek philosophers Empedocles of Agrigento. Okay, here Agrigento is a place in Greece. So, Empedocles' theory of matter, which states that all matter is made up of four elements, and which are the four elements? Earth, air, fire, and water. And Empedocles also believed that two cosmic forces, love and strife. Here strife means fight. Okay, so love and strife interact with these elements to create and destroy. So in this picture you can see the Empedocles, and his famous quote is, the nature of God is a circle of which the center is everywhere and the circumference is nowhere. Then around 485 BCE to 415 BCE, life of Greek sophist Protagoras. Okay, Life of Greek sophist Protagoras. Here, what is the meaning of sophist and who is sophist? One whose reasoning is subtle and emphasize and emphasize open spacious. Here, what is the meaning of spacious? Spacious means something seems to exist or to be true, but it is not real or true. Okay, so the Greek philosophist Protagoras claimed that a human being is the measure of all things. Okay, he claimed that a human being is the measure of all things. And his famous quotes is there are two sides to every question. Then after Protagoras, around 470 BCE to 391 BCE, life of the Chinese pacifist philosopher Mo Ti. Okay, and who was Mo Ti? Founder of Moism. Here, pacifist. Who was pacifist? Pacifist means one who is pacifist is believe that war and violence are always wrong. They neither support war and nor support violence. So Moti, who was Moti, founder of Moism. And what is the meaning of Moism? An influential philosophical, social, and religious movement in ancient China. Okay. Then after Moti, around 469 BCE to 399 BCE, life of the Greek philosopher Socrates of Athens. He is also called the father of philosophy, and Socrates always believed that the ultimate goal of human existence is not just to live but to live a good, meaningful, and virtuous life that is guided by reason, virtue, and moral principles. And here you can see that he is Socrates, the father of philosophy, and his one of the most famous quotes is that an unexamined life is not worth living. Then after Socrates, around 460 BCE to 370 BCE, life of Greek philosopher Democritus of Abdera. And here Abdera is a place in Greece. So the Greek philosopher Democritus, who was Democritus? Pupil or disciple of Lucipacus. Okay, Lucy Pace, or you can see it Lucy Pus. So the Democritus is remembered today for his development of the concept of the atomic theory of the universe, and he said that atoms and the void as the fundamental constituents of the physical world. He claims that atoms and the void as the fundamental constituents of the physical world. And here you can see that he is Democritus. Then after Democritus, around 450 BCE to 370 BCE, the life of Greek philosopher Antisthenes, okay, or you can pronunciate it Antisons or Antisthenes, okay, of Athens. Athens is a place in Greece, and who was Antisthenes or Antisons? Pupil of Socrates, disciple of Socrates, and his main interests are asceticism, ethics, language, literature, and uh, logic. Okay, and what is the meaning of asceticism? Asceticism means a simple, strict way of life with no luxuries or physical pleasure. Then, uh, their notable ideas of antithesis are laying the foundations of cynic philosophy. Okay, and what is the meaning of cynic? Cynic means you can say it is fault finder. Okay, one who believes that people always act selfishly. Okay, or cynic is someone who is critical of the motives of others, or cynic is one who always advocate the doctrine that virtue is the sorry, and the antisthenes is always advocated the doctrine that virtue is the only good, and that the essence of virtue is self control. So, again, reiterating, Antisthenes always advocated that doctrine, and what is the doctrine? That virtue is the only good, and that the essence of virtue is self control. And his one of the noble ideas uh, about distinction between sense and reference, and I reference. So here you can see the antisense or antisthenes. In US, it is his name is pronunciated as Antisons, and in UK, his name is pronunciated as Antisthenes, and is one of the famous quote is that pay attention to your enemies, because for they are the first to discover your mistakes. Then after Antisthenes, around 440 BCE to 360 BCE, the life of Chinese hedonist. Here, what is the meaning of hedonist? Hedonist means you can call it pleasure seeker. Okay, and who is the pleasure seeker? One having pleasure is the most important thing. Okay, one who thinks that pleasure is the most important thing, or someone motivated by desires for sensual pleasure. Okay, so, around 440 BCE to 360 BCE, life of Chinese hedonist philosopher Yang Zhu. And Yang Zhu was the first Chinese philosopher to discuss human nature, that in China it is human nature is called Xing, that means natural tendencies. And here you can see the picture of Yang Zhu. Then after Yangzhou, around 430 BCE to 354 BCE, the life of Greek philosopher Xenophon. Okay, and Xenophon was one of the disciples or pupils of Socrates. Okay, and Xenophon was also an Athenian military leader, okay, of Athens. Athens is a place in Greece, and Xenophon was critical of extreme democracy. That is why he and for a time he was exiled as a traitor because he was against the extreme democracy, or you can call it against government. So in this picture you can see the Xenophon, and after Xenophon, around 427 BCE to 347 BCE, life of Plato, one of the most important pupils or disciples of Socrates. Then after around 424 BCE to 423 BCE, Plato is born in the Athens, Greece. Then around 407 BCE, Plato meets Socrates, and Plato abandoned aspiration to be playwright. Then around 403 BCE, Plato turns away from politics towards philosophy. Okay, and you can see the picture of Plato. The analogy of cave is famous. Uh, Then after Plato, around 404 BCE to 320 BCE, the life of Greek philosopher Diogenes, okay, of Sinope, and Sinope is a place in Greece, and later Diogenes' works had influenced the development of philosophy such as cynicism and stoicism. And what is the meaning of stoicism? Stoicism means stoical behavior or stoic behavior. And who is stoic? One who never complain or show that he or she is upset in bad situation, or you can clearly call them as unemotional person, okay, or impassive person, or you can say that they are unaffected by pleasure or pain. So here you can see the picture of Diogenes, and after Diogenes, around 399 BCE, trial and death of philosopher Socrates, who taught in the court of Agora. The trial of Socrates around 399 BCE was held to determine the philosopher's guilt of two charges. Socrates were charged have two charges. The first charge is one called asabia, okay, or asiba, that means impiety. And what is the meaning of impiety? lack of reverence or proper respect for a god, or unrighteousness by virtue of lacking respect for a god. Okay, against the pantheons of Athens. And what is the meaning of pantheon? Pantheon, you can pan is a root word that means all. Okay, group of gods or important people. And corruption of youth of the city state. The accuser cited two impious acts by Socrates, failing to acknowledge the gods that the city acknowledges and introducing new deities. Okay, here deities means god and goddess. And here you can see the picture of Socrates. Then after the trial and death of Socrates around 384 BCE to 322 BCE, life of Greek philosopher Aristotle, okay, of Stagira. Stagira is a place in Greece, and Aristotle was the pupil or disciple of uh, Plato. Okay, Plato is the disciple of Socrates. Aristotle is the disciple of Plato, and Alexander the Great is the disciple of Aristotle. So Aristotle influenced Immanuel Kant, René Descartes, Nicholas Copernicus, or Ptolemy Ptolemy. And Aristotle influenced by Plato, Socrates, Heraclitus, and Empedocles. Here you can see the picture of Aristotle. Then, after Aristotle's life, around 380 BCE, Plato founds his own academy outside of Athens. Aristotle studied there for 20 years, around 367 to till 347 BCE, before founding his own school. And what is the school's name of Aristotle? Lyceum. Okay, Lyceum. Plato's academy and Plato's schools was an academy. Sorry, Plato's school's name was academy, and Aristotle's school's name was Lyceum. Here is the picture of Plato's school academy. Then after academy, around 372 BCE to 289 BCE, life of the Chinese Confucian philosopher Mencius or Mengze. Okay, Mencius or Mengze. And what is the meaning of Confucianism? Confucianism is a Chinese religious philosophy that emphasizes human morality and correct personal behavior. Okay, and Maintained or Mencius is most famous for his theory of human nature, according to which all human beings share an innate goodness. Innate means inborn goodness that either can be cultivated through education and self-discipline, or squandered or waste through neglect and negative influences but never lost altogether simultaneously. Okay. Here is the picture of Mengje, and he is also known in China as Mengzu, that is Latinized as uh, Mencius. Okay, and Mengzi is one of the world's greatest philosophers. He world's great philosophers, and he systematically developed and uh, depended Confucius deepened Confucius philosophy, especially its ethics and politics in relation to an account of human nature. Then around 360 BCE to 361 BCE to 360 BCE, Plato's second trip to Syracuse. Okay, and what is Syracuse? Syracuse is a place in Greece where Plato trip Plato visited second time, and Plato tells of his first visit to Syracuse. In his first visit, he befriended with Dion. Okay, he befriended with Dion, a man during the reign of Dionysius the Elder. Dionysius the Elder died after Plato had returned home, and Dion urged him to educate the younger Dionysius, who had ascended to the tyranny. Okay, who has ascended to the tyranny. Tyranny here, tyranny means a cruel, harsh, and unfair government of a small group of powerful people. Or you can say tyranny means a ruler is an absolute dictator, and tyranny means dictatorship, or you can say one man rule, or absolutism, or authoritarianism, or uh, despotism, or monarchy, or totalitarianism. Okay, or Stalinism. So after the ruler of Dionysius or the elder, the friend of Plato, that's name is Dion, requested or urged Plato to educate the younger Dionysius, who had ascended to tyranny, with the aim of transforming him into a philosopher king. Then Plato decided in his 60 to go to Syracuse a second time, following reason and justice as closely as is humanly possible. And he left behind his philosophical pursuits in democratic Athens and came under a tyranny. Then around 343 BCE, the King Philip II, and who was the King Philip II? Uh, the father of Alexander. Okay, the father of Alexander, King Philip II of Macedonia, summons Aristotle to tuition his younger son Alexander. Okay, and later the Alexander was known as the Great Alexander the Great. And here you can see the picture of Philip II and Alexander altogether. Then around 300 and 360, 336 BCE to 265 BCE, life of the philosopher Zeno of Citium. Here Citium is a place in Greece, and Zeno is Zeno of Citium is shipwrecked and stranded in Athens. Okay, Zeno of Citium is shipwrecked. Here, what is the meaning of shipwrecked? Shipwrecked means you can clearly say that shipwrecked means you can clearly say that if someone is shipwrecked, their ship is destroyed in an accident at sea or ocean, but they survive and manage to reach land. Okay, so Zeno is shipwrecked and stranded in Athens, and Zeno was the founder of the Stoic school of philosophy in Athens, which taught that the logos, and what is the meaning of logos? Universal reason. So, universal reason was the greatest good in life, and living in accordance with reason was the purpose of human life. Okay, and here you can see the picture of Zeno. And after Zeno, around 213 BCE, the burning of the books and the burying of philosophers period in China was started. Okay, and the phrase burning of the books and burying of the scholars was famous during the reign of Fenshu Kangaroo. Okay, Fenshu Kangaroo, who is often used to and the phrase is often used to describe the reign of Queen Shi Huangdi. Okay, Queen uh, Queen Shinguhendi, the first emperor of China. The phrase refers to two separate events that occurred during his rule simultaneously, and which two events? The burning of the books and the burying of philosophers, like Nalanda University in India. Then after around one Christian era, 200 Christian era or CE. Okay, CE, the Mahayana movement begin in India. The Mahayana movement begin in India. In Buddhism, there were two sects, that is Mahayana and Hinayana. Okay, and with its belief in Bodhisattva, and Bodhisattva means saintly souls who help the living, and the Mahayana, known for its first complex ritual, paradoxical metaphysics, and universal ethics. Some practices of Mahayana include memorizing, chanting, and worshipping scriptures, as well as prayers and offerings. In Mahayana Buddhism, uh, the followers of Buddhism memorize, chant, or worship the scripture, while in Hinayana Buddhism, the followers of Buddhism worship the idol. Okay, idol worshipping, like the idol worshipping. So the main focus of Mahayana is obtaining or gaining the compassion of the Bodhisattva. Okay, and what is the meaning of Bodhisattva? An enlightened being that helps others become free from suffering. So you can see the symbol of Mahayana Buddhism. Then after around 204 Christian era to 270 Christian era, life of Plotinus. Okay, life of Plotinus. So the Plotinus was a Greek Platonist philosopher, okay, or pro-Plato philosopher, born and raised in Roman Egypt. Plotinus is regarded by modern scholarship as the founder of Neoplatonism. And what is the meaning of Neoplatonism? Neoplatonism is a philosophical system as a synthesis, okay, as a synthesis of Platonic, Pythagorean, and Aristotelian elements, okay. Neoplatonism is a synthesis of Platonic, Pythagorean, and Aristotelian elements, and which originally opposed to Christianity but later incorporated it, and it dominated during the European thought until 13th century and re-emerged during the Renaissance, okay, or Renaissance. So Platonus was a Greek Platonist philosopher, and he was born and brought up in Roman Egypt. And Platonus is regarded by modern scholarship as the founder of Neoplatonism, and his teacher was the self-taught philosopher. And who was his teacher? Ammonius Saccus. Okay, Ammonius Saccus, or who belonged to the Platonic tradition, and his teacher also belonged to the Platonic tradition. Here you can see the picture of Plotinus, and Plotinus said that being is desirable because it is identical with beauty, and beauty is loved because it is being. We ourselves possess beauty when we are true to our own being. Ugliness is in going over to another order, knowing ourselves we are beautiful. In self ignorance, we are ugly. Then around 380s Common Era or Christian Era to 418 Common Era or Christian Era, lifetime of Paulus Orosius. Okay, life of Paulus Orosius. Okay, and Paulus Orosius was a Roman priest, historian, and theologian. Okay, and a student Augustine of Hippo, and he was a pupil, student, or disciple of Augustine of Hippo. And Paulus Orosius was also a defender of early Christian orthodoxy and author of the First World History by a Christian. and he is best known. And here, who Paulus Oresius is best known for his work, Seven Books of History Against the Pagans. And what is the meaning of pagan? Pagan who didn't believe in Christianity. Who are called pagan? One who never believed in Christianity in former times or in ancient times. So you can see the picture of Paulus Oresius. Then after Paulus Oresius, around 385 century to 470 century, life of the philosopher Philolaus. Okay, life of the philosopher started, and he was active in Magna Graecia, and he was a Greek, Pythagorean, and pre-Socratic philosopher. And Philolaus was born in Greek colony in Italy and migrated to Greece. And Pythagoreanism developed at some point into two separate schools of thought. And what are the two separate schools of thought? One about listeners, and the second or the other about learners. And the listeners are pronunciated there as acostimetikoi, and the learners or pronunciated there as mathematicoi. Okay, and what is the meaning of listeners or acostimaticoi? Who focused on the more religious and ritualistic aspects of Pythagoras teachings. And what is the meaning of mathematicoi or learners? Who extended and developed the more mathematical and scientific work. Okay, so Philolaus believed that there was a counter earth. Okay, counter earth, that is also called anti-Chthon. Okay, anti-Chthon orbiting the central fire. Okay, Philolaus believed that there was a counter Earth orbiting the central fire, not labeled, and the central fire that was not visible from Earth. Okay, and the upper illustration depicts Earth at night, while the lower one depicts Earth in the day. So here is the picture of Philolaus, and you can see him. Then after Philolaus, around 500 Common Era to 600 Common Era, in India, the Tantrics expands the number of deities or god and goddesses to include helpful demons contactable through ritual. Okay, contactable through ritual. Tantra are mainly two types in India: Agama and Nigama. And what is the meaning of Agama and Nigama? Agamas are those texts in which goddess asked questions and the god replied. And Nigamas are vice versa. Or in Nigama text, God asked questions and goddess replied. Okay, this dialogue between god and goddess is a special feature of Hindu Tantra. So, some of the Swarupa form of Shiva that are worshipped by tantric practitioners are Uchistha Ganpati, Kalbhairava, and Yamnataka. So you can precisely see the picture of the symbol of Tantra. Then around 524 Common Era or Christian Era to 525 Common Era or Christian Era, uh, we can say that uh, uh, Anicius Menelaus T.S. Boethius of Rome, okay, or Bethius of Rome writes the Consolation of Philosophy. The philosopher Anicius Menelaus T.S. Bethius, or simply you can remember him as Bethius, okay, and he was from Rome, Italy, who writes the Consolation of Philosophy while imprisoned by Theodoric in Pavia, okay. And Bethius left a deep mark in Christian theology and provided the basis for the development of mathematics, music, logic, and dialectic in medieval Latin schools or medieval Latin schools. Here is his consolation of philosophy, and you can see in picture the Bethin, Anicius, Bethius. Then around 617 century Common Era to 686 Common Era, life of the Korean Buddhist philosopher Bunheveng Wonggyo, okay, or you can call him Bunheveng Wonghyo, okay, and he entered Wengyongsa temple, okay, and he entered Wengyongsa temple as a monk, studied Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism, and diligently practiced meditation. Then Wonggyo spent the earlier part of his career as a monk. So you can see the picture of Wonggyo. Oh. So you can see the picture of Wonggyo. Then around 1615 BCE, or you can say around 800 years from 750 years from today, uh, Thomas Hobbes, okay, Thomas Hobbes, an English philosopher means he is from England, okay, publishes his book Leviathan, okay. He publishes his book Leviathan, and Thomas Hobbes considers humans to be naturally vainglorious. Okay, what is the meaning of vainglorious? Vainglorious are those people who are very proud of what they have done and boast a lot about it. Okay, and boast a lot about it, or you can say feeling self importance, or you can directly call him swelled. Okay, so Hobbes considers humans to be naturally vainglorious and so seek to dominate others and demand their respect. The natural condition of mankind, according to Thomas Hobbes, is a state of war in which life is solitary or alone, poor, nasty, brutish, and short because individuals are in a war of all against all. Okay. So here you can see the picture of Thomas Hobbes. Then around 600, 1689 century, or you can say around 700 years before from today. Okay, John Locke, an English philosopher and physician, okay, publishes his essay concerning human understanding. And what is the his essay? Two treatises on government and letters on toleration. And he is John Locke, and he said that all mankind being all equal and independent, no one ought to be harm another in his life, health, liberty, or possession. Then around 1726 Common Era or Christian Era, Francis Hutcheson. Okay, Francis Hutcheson, and who was the Francis Hutcheson, professor of moral philosophy at the University of Glasgow, coins the term the greatest happiness of the greatest number. Francis Hutcheson coins the term, and what was the term? The greatest happiness of the greatest number in his inquiry concerning moral good and evil. And you can see the picture of Francis Hutcheson. Then after French's accession around 1776 CE, or you can say from today 600 year ago, the uh, English philosopher Grimmy Bentham, and he was also a jurist and legal reformer, publishes publishes a fragment on government. Okay, and he was the founder of modern utilitarianism. Okay, and what is the meaning of utilitarianism? It is an ethical theory holding that actions are morally right if they tend to promote happiness or pleasure, and morally wrong if they tend to promote unhappiness or pain among all those affected by them. So you can precisely see the picture of Grimmy Bentham. Then after Grimmy Bentham, around 1859, Christian era or Common era, John Stuart Mill, and who was the John Stuart Mill, former MP of UK. Here UK means not Uttarakhand but United Kingdom. Kidding. So, John Stuart Mill, former member of Parliament of the United Kingdom, also philosopher and economist, publishes his own liberty. Okay, then around 1863 century, John Stuart Mill publishes his utilitarianism, and his most important works include System of Logic around 1843, 43, then On Liberty. His next work was On Liberty that was published on around 1859 century. Then utilitarianism, that was again published around 1861 century, and an examination of Sir William Hamilton's philosophy around 1865. And he also published 3.7 miles theoretical philosophy that depicts the self-supporting or self-undermining theory. So in this picture you can precisely see the picture of John Stuart Mill, who have lived around between 1806 century and 1873 century, and his famous quote is, one person with a belief is equal to 99, one person with a belief is equal to 99 who have only interests. So here we precisely have completed the timeline of philosophy and the contemporary philosophers. So thanks for watching.